one way you can do that is if you're in the oil and gas business, you can spew chemicals into the air and reduce your costs and increase your income. And just let the society deal with the costs. And they deal with that by having asthma, children missing school, healthcare costs go up. That's the social cost that's been transferred onto the society. And what I've heard since about 6:15 when I got here is that the society is tired of paying the cost. What I've heard here is that people from all walks of life are coming to you and saying, we've been paying a heavy burden, and we're looking to you, the EPA, to help level the playing field. Let those people who are generating those costs or demanding those services pay the full price. Now, one gentleman said that, oh, well, we need the natural gas, and I agree, we do need natural gas. We've got to have it for the peak load of air conditioning. Well, in January, I put solar panels on my home. And I haven't paid a utility bill this summer. Okay. Generate more power in the peak periods of cooling than I use. Okay, so I have some I can draw on. I'm plugged into the grid. I'm not totally independent. Now, the reason that my solar panels are not economically viable is because there's very little social cost of my solar panels being put off onto the society. Part of the reason that our oil and gas is so cheap is that we overlook the fact that every 10 years or so we have to send an army to the Middle East to make sure that our supply is still in place. We overlook the social costs of drilling all of this natural gas in the populated areas of the country. So what we're asking you to do is to make sure that those costs that are really there stop being paid by the society and start being paid by the consumer of that product. Now, what that's going to do is raise the price of petroleum products, oil and gas, to their real cost. And once we begin to look at, gee, that's what it really costs to air condition my house, maybe a geothermal system might be worth looking into. Or, gee, photocells don't look nearly as expensive now that my utility bill is $500 a month. Okay? So, it's very great, and I have breathing troubles, and I look at our yellow skies in the summertime around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I bemoan all the bad air. And that's your business, and I'm really looking for you to solve those problems. But I want you to also understand that I'm looking to you to level the playing field. Put the costs onto those people who deserve to pay the cost, not the children. Different experience now. I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas. There's a lot of oil and gas being drilled out of Wichita Falls, Texas. My mother's side of the family was steeped in oil. I had 3 uncles who made their whole livelihood was the oil business. One had a drilling company. One was a driller. One was a roughneck, and he did a lot of different things, including pulling out well later on in the 70s. I remember walking over a large number of oil and gas leases in Wichita Archer, Clay counties. When I was a kid growing up, seeing what my uncles did for a living. I'd go out to these well sites, and I'd look around, and, you know, I'm 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, you know, and getting to that dangerous age when you start thinking. And I'd ask, well, Uncle Boyd, what are you going to do with all those barrels of that really nasty stuff? He said, oh, don't worry about it. We're just going to shove it off into the mud pit, covered up with a bulldozer, and move on to the next drilling site. Now, the reason I share this with you is that you need to understand the culture in Texas. The culture in Texas is, if nobody's watching, and I can get away with it, it's not wrong. Those same people sit on the regulatory commissions in this state. This bipolar story. Okay? The regulator sat here, and the lady did a wonderful job of explaining to you what were all the things that the state was doing for the good citizens of Texas to make sure that we were all going to be healthy. I didn't hear a single hand come together when she finished. And on the other hand, you hear gentlemen such as this explain to you what it's really like living around here. Okay? That's because this state was in the forefront of the drilling operation. Those gunslingers went out there and punched holes in the ground and went on to the next one. In fact, my uncles, who had the clean out well, they kept notes while they were drilling all those wells. And they knew where all those wells were that weren't even tapped in some cases. Hell, they were only making a few barrels a day. And when the price of oil went up, they went out there, put together a clean out rig, went out there and found those wells and started putting them back into production. Okay? So I'm not talking from just off the top of my head. I've been there. I've seen how these guys work. They're my relatives. And I can assure you that the air that I get to breathe and my children get to breathe, and my grandchildren get to breathe, is not going to be any cleaner than you require it.
Let me just ask, is Bruce Cunningham here? Are we trying again? Bruce? I guess not. So, Kanini Brooks, please, and Sherelle Blakey.
Good evening. I'm Kanini Brooks, and I am a parent. I have two children, aged 9 and 10. My husband and I are homeowners in Arlington in the Barnett Shale. We own our mineral rights. My sole purpose for being here is to voice my concern of the seemingly elevation of money over safety. When gas leasing came up in my neighborhood, I started attending meetings trying to get well informed, such as those as hosted by Mrs. McGelfish. I quickly learned about the concerns for safety and lack of interest, lack of engagement, lack of stringent enough guidelines to protect our families and our homes from the agencies in whose hands accountability and enforcement rests. In these meetings, I became aware of Mayor Tillman and the town of Dish and all of their issues. I also became aware that Fort Worth has funded their own air quality testing. And all of these studies yielding alarming results. They are available online, you can see them. And 3 pressing concerns seems to be recurring themes, and that is there's no local monitoring or enforcement guidelines. There's confusion as to who should oversee, whether it's the Railroad Commission, the TCEQ, or city or local agencies. And third, there are serious grave safety concerns. So I just encourage you to ask the tough questions, such as when it comes to urban drilling, what exactly is a safe distance from residences? I know Arlington's ordinance is 600 feet, but the council can override that to shorter distance. And they do all the time. I've been to council meetings. My children's school is just a couple blocks from a wellhead, and they're just in the 4th and 5th grade, so they still have a couple years to go there and play outside and walk to school or walk back and forth. And also, what is a safe rate at which to set up these stations and wellheads? It seems like, I don't know if it's just a function of competition between companies getting to a location, or they know something we don't know and they're trying to get in and get out before we figure it out. So I'd also encourage you to follow the money. Only an agency like the EPA can provide the regulations that are needed, and I just implore you to ensure that we do the right thing, because there is no turning back. And safety first, not money first, because if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. I do appreciate you being here. It sounds like you had a different purpose for coming, but hopefully we have sent the message loud and clear that we need help here.
Hi, I'm Sherelle Blazer. I'm here. I've prepared comments from Environmental Defense Fund, and I'll be submitting those, and tomorrow you'll get some more from us, and we've already sent you some studies. So I don't know that I mean, it's all pretty much been said already. You know, I'm sitting here listening to prepared statements by industry and industry supporters, and they talk about, you know, how impassioned and how angry in the room. I have to say, I've been to so many of these meetings, and I never hear anger in the room from the people who are speaking. You know, I hear well-reasoned logic. I hear people recounting what they go through every single day. I hear the urgency in their voice because they feel like they won't get help anywhere else. But I don't hear, you know, anger and raging and passionate people. And it always just sounds so bizarre when an industry representative says, well, I want a well-reasoned, you know, study, none of this passion and anger. I'm just like, what's that passion? But anyway, I just want to say that I have the highest respect for you all for coming out here and getting the public perspective. I know that you're doing lots of things. You're conducting this in a way that you may not have to, and you're going above and beyond. Even though you've been sued, you're still going to believe that you're going above and beyond, even if they were sued. So I thank you for taking this approach, and I'm glad that you're going to be working with all of us. And I also encourage you that if this process does not close the 112N exception in metropolitan statistical areas, I hope that this will address that, and if not, that we come up with some solution for it, because those smaller sources must be aggregated. The public health issue is too great and it's too egregious. And speaking not on behalf of the Environmental Defense Fund, but just as a mother and, you know, a chemist and an environmental professional, someone who lives here. You know, I used to live in Mansfield, Texas, and I moved. I didn't understand it. I moved from DC after I finished my degree in New Haven, and I didn't understand what all of this drilling was. So I moved promptly out to Mansfield because it was cleaner. And